Good morning, everyone. It's another nice day today, and so today we're actually going to the Palace of Versailles, and this is located in the suburbs of Paris. I woke up a bit later today, and it's almost 9 o'clock, and I still haven't had any breakfast yet, so I'm just gonna go grab some quick breakfast, and then we're gonna be heading to the Palace of the Versailles. We'll see you there.
After grabbing a pastry and a coffee for around €3 from a place near my hotel, I left Cartier-Latrun for Versailles, located in the suburbs of Paris. To reach Versailles, the most convenient way is to take the RER C Train. If your hotel is located near Musée d'Orsay and Les Invalides, where we visited in a previous episode, or Champ de Mars near the Eiffel Tower, you're in luck because there will be a train that will take you straight to Versailles. Please note there are two stations in Versailles. One is closer to the Palace of Versailles, and the other is 15 minutes further away on foot. The station closer to the palace is called Versailles Château Rive Gauche. Make sure you check the train before boarding, as this will make you walk 15 minutes less.
Alright folks, I have just arrived at the Palace of Versailles, and here you go. See, this palace is pretty impressive at the first sight, especially the facade. It's definitely one of the grandest I've ever seen, and of course the statue behind me, that's Louis XIV, so possibly the most famous French monarch in the history, other than Napoleon, of course. I can already see the crowds rushing inside, and yeah, well, let's hurry up as well.
The Palace of Versailles, or Château de Versailles in French, is one of the most iconic and largest royal palaces in the world. The enormous size and the luxurious construction makes Château de Versailles the dream palace that every king or queen desires. Even today, some super rich billionaires occasionally throw huge parties at this grand palace to show off their opulence. I'm not saying you should buy a Louis Vuitton handbag to accompany your next visit. But if you already have one, I mean, why not? You and your bag will be delighted to have your picture taken with everything plated in gold, including the palace's fence. Alright, let's get into the palace, shall we?
Yeah, so I just got into the palace itself, and for those of you who are also using the museum pass like me, keep in mind that you have to exchange a ticket at the ticket office before entering. So I thought I could walk straight in, and then after a couple of exchange of conversations, I realized that I have to well, first exchange my ticket, so that probably delayed the whole process by about 15 minutes. So I'm just telling you right now, just in case you have the same pass, so when you come to the Palace of Versailles, make sure you go to the ticket office first. But anyways, now I am in. I've passed the security checkpoint, so all the pressures are off, and let's go explore the great Palace of Versailles.
The facade of the palace appeared to be impressive already. But what's more impressive was that this grand palace started as a humble hunting lodge under Louis XIII. Today, the Palace of Versailles is often associated with the son of Louis XIII, Louis XIV. It was during the reign of Louis XIV, who also spent part of his childhood at this hunting lodge, that this grand palace was constructed, and Versailles became the de facto capital city of all territories controlled by France at the time. Yes, I'm looking at you, Quebec. Being the longest reigning monarch in human history, and one of the most important figures in France's history, Louis XIV was known as the Sun King, both because of his tremendous influence on the French society during his reign and his bright personality. You can also find a piece of the Sun King in the Palace of Versailles today, because everything you see there is glittering like the sun. One of the first things I saw upon entering the palace was the Baroque-style royal chapel. The Palace of Versailles is probably one of the best examples of Baroque-style architecture in the world. You'll certainly see more lavish interiors later when we visit the core parts of the palace. Despite its grand size, the way the palace was decorated made you feel like you were visiting somebody's private residence. Actually, you are. This was the private residence of Louis XIV. You'll find statues and paintings referencing to the Sun King almost everywhere across this huge palace. I mean, at first it was intended to be a chateau in the countryside anyways, as the French name chateaudeversailles suggests. It was just later Louis XIV realized that his grand chateau was too awesome, and he could even invite some of the French nobles to move in as well. Guess what? The nobles moved to Versailles, so Louis XIV had them under his control. Smart, huh? The reign of Louis XIV saw the centralization of power that was unseen in feudal Europe. This also made France the powerhouse of the continent at the time, all thanks to a much more efficient, centralized government. After the special exhibition on animals, which made me wonder, where was I? Or why was I even here in the first place? I finally made it to one of the core parts of Château de Versailles, Salon de Apollo, or in English, the Salon of Hercules. Most of the impressive works you see in this room, believe it or not, was done after the death of Louis XIV. The construction and later the decoration was pretty much under the direction and the supervision of Louis XV, who used this impressive room as a banquet hall. Can you imagine what the guests back in the days would react once they step into a room like this? I mean, I would be in total shock even if I get invited to a banquet hall like this today. Well, I guess only in my dream, since I'm no noble, nor am I rich. Among all the salons, the Salon of Apollo was of great significance to Louis XIV, because its ceiling painting pays tribute to Apollo, the Roman god of sun. And Louis XIV was known as the Sun King. That's why you'll find this room to be where the throne was located. On the two sides, you'll find two famous paintings of Louis XIV himself, including the original of one we saw earlier in this episode. The next salon is not named after one of the Roman gods. Rather, it pays tribute to war, the ones that France fought and declared victories on. On the ceiling, a personified France in the form of a lady warrior is wielding a shield bearing the image of Louis XIV? This is pure propaganda. Seriously, looking in his eyes, what do you see? The cult of personality. The Salon of War, together with the salons named after the Roman gods, are collectively known as the king's state apartment, and they were used for state reception purposes. Where else would be the best place to both impress your guests and at the same time feed them with your propaganda? Move on to the next section. Oh, this is unreal. I guess welcome to the Hall of Mirrors, which many say is the highlight of the Palace of Versailles. This lavish hall is the epitome of Baroque style interior decoration and is unrivaled by all other lavish rooms I have ever seen. Being right next to a salon that glorifies the triumph of Louis XIV through war, the Hall of Mirrors, ironically, is where the proclamation of the German Empire took place in 1871, following the humiliating defeat of Napoleon III's French army during the Franco-Prussian War. When Germany lost World War I, the signing of another treaty that ended that very German Empire also took place in the same room in 1919. On the other end of the Hall of Mirrors is the Salon of Peace. Did the signing of the Treaty of Versailles really bring peace? At what cost? What we know now is that by simply humiliating Germany through the terms of the Treaty of Versailles did not create peace. It led to an even worse war with more innocent people dying, and this war almost wiped France off the world map. Think about it. What does peace mean to you? Will you accept peace if it's built on the miseries of others? Then we entered the Coronation Room. This room is dedicated to the first person to ever hold the title of the Emperor of France, Napoleon Bonaparte. This is where you get to see giant paintings about the highlights of Napoleon's life, done by Jacques-Louis David, including an alternative version of the Coronation of Napoleon, which we saw at the Louvre. The painting at the Louvre was actually originally from this collection here at the Versailles. But right here in this room, you get to see other lesser-known masterpieces from Jacques-Louis David as well. The last stop of our Château de Versailles tour is the Gallery of the Great Battles. More propaganda, except it was curated by King Louis Philippe in the mid-19th century during the 18-year-long July monarchy. Little did he know that in a few decades' time, a new continental European power would rise and defeat France in a manner that, it wasn't suitable for display at this impressive gallery. Despite being the last stop of the tour of the palace's main structure, our exploration of the Palace of Versailles will continue. What else will we see? Follow me to the next episode.
This is more like a little Versailles within the Versailles.